o'clock.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
I'm ready whenever you guys are.
We're ready.
We're live on YouTube, so we're ready to go.
Okay, for this meeting of July 20, 2020, 7 p.m. Members in attendance.
All right, I'll do a roll call. George D'Angelo?
Here.
Philip Masticola?
Yeah.
James Tarr?
Here.
Cheyenne Rangel?
Here.
Michael O'Connor? Oh, where'd Michael go?
Men's room.
Michael, well, men's room, okay. We'll do Leo Pisano,
Here.
Chairman Frederick Cafasso,
Here.
and Michael O'Connor is here, but he just stepped out. So we'll see his face soon. But let me just read off what we have for our typical remote meeting participation. We just look in. All right. So today is Monday, July 20th, 2020, and it's 7 p.m. In response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 12, 2020, the Everett Planning Board shall be meeting remotely until further notice. The audio conferencing application Zoom will be used for this purpose. An online link and telephone access number will be provided on all meeting agendas and also on the city's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the city's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. This application will permit the public to access and participate in future board meetings and hearings. Instructions for joining the meeting in this manner will be provided on the city and city clerk's website. We extend our thanks for your understanding and participation in this manner, which is intended to keep members of the board and public safe. All right. So we did a roll call of the members. Mr. Chairman, for item number 1 on the site plan 110 on Fremont Street, the applicant requested to be pushed on the back end of the agenda. So I'm asking the board to consider taking number 2 out of order and pushing number 1 to the back end of the agenda.
Number 1 was what, please?
Number 1 is a site plan review for 110 Tremont Street.
Okay, gotcha. Got it now.
All right.
Any questions of the board? The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to move item 1 to the rear of the agenda for this evening.
Do we have a second?
Second motion.
Motion is made and seconded to put item number 1 on the last part of the agenda for this evening. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. It has been done.
All right, so we'll push that back. All right, and now we have item number 2 on our agenda, which is 178 180 Elm Street. So let me read off the legal notice for that. So we're having a public hearing on the following application for 178 180 Elm Street. In accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 19 of the Everett zoning ordinance, the Everett Planning Board will conduct a virtual public hearing on Monday, July 20th, 2020 at 7 p.m. online to be viewed on the Everett Planning Board's YouTube page. To consider the above listed application in connection with the proposal to renovate and redevelop a current mixed-use building and reconstruct second story, then add third floor to building within current building footprint. The upper 2 floors will each contain 4 residential apartments as shown as the plans entitled Mixed Use Building Residential Addition 178 Elm Street by Criticos Architects, being a parcel of land referenced by Assessor's Department N0-03-000042. The application with narrative and the site plan were received on July 2nd, 2020 from Delory Law. The plans are entitled Mixed Use Building Residential Edition 178 Elm Street, were prepared by Criticos Architects, 14 Olson Road, Peabody, Mass. 01960, and prepared for the owner, Cara LLC, 178 Elm Street. A copy of the application and plans are on file and available at this office of the city clerks and the Department of Planning and Development, both located at City Hall, 484 Everett, Mass. 02149, and can be inspected online at www.cityofeverett.com/449/planning-board or by request via email. All persons interested or wishing to be heard on the proposal should appear before that time and place designated above. As items may be continued to later dates, please contact Shane O'Brien, myself, Land Use Planner of the Department of Planning and Development at Shane O'Brien at cieverettma.us or 617-394-2334 before attending. Well, without
Thank you.
further ado, if the applicant is here,
Can we? Yeah,
Good evening. All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Attorney Paul Delory, representing Cara LLC on this petition. My team is here tonight. Mr. Raj Kishar, who is the principal in Cara LLC, as well as Bob Gatta, who is the contractor, and Phil Criticos, who is the architect, and they'll be here to answer any particular questions you may have that I can't field. This property is at 178, 180 Elm Street. As Shane said, that this is before you tonight for the purpose of site plan review. I tried to submit as comprehensive an application as I could because doing these remote hearings, sometimes you try to provide as much information as you can in that initial description. The public notice pretty much details what the project is. There's an existing market/convenience store on the first floor and just one large room upstairs that's had kind of a uncertain past, whether it's been commercial at some point or residential at one point. Right now, it's just a big open room. So the project in sum is to renovate the market convenience store completely with all new facade and exterior, and to build out and renovate the second floor to make 4 residential units, and then to add a third floor to make 4 residential units. So there'll be a total of 8 units, residential units on the second and third floor. They will range in size from approximately 345 square feet up to 500 square feet. This property is located in a business district. And in the business district, we looked at the building jacket when we first presented this to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And according to the sewer connections, it looks like it was built as long ago as 1892. It's been in that place. And frankly, the present existing building is, for lack of a better term, it's tired. It needs an upgrade. And it certainly needs a design upgrade in conformance with the Everett design standards. The footprint of the building in this construction and renovation will remain the same. The new building will be built within the existing footprint of the building. If you look at the site plan that's attached to the submission, you can see that the footprint of the building covers nearly all of the lot area. There's a small area, as you can see in back, where there's that pointed area. And there's actually going to be, there is a stormwater management plan that's been submitted, and that's where some of the dry wells are going to be. And there's a small area on the left side of the building where the actual entrance to the residential units will be. In terms of traffic flow, I mean, there is no parking on the site. This is an area that we discussed in some detail with the Zoning Board of Appeals when this was first allowed. There is no parking there. The Zoning Board of Appeals has a standard limitation in which no resident of the building will be allowed to obtain a parking sticker for that building. The good news is that right at the outside of that building, right at the end of the walkway, that's where a T-stop is located, so that would provide transportation for the residents of the building. Any deliveries to the convenience store will be made in the front door, so there doesn't have to be any further, entrance into the area at all. That's the way it's been done now. And as I said, a stormwater management plan, that was some concern of the planning department, and then we submitted a separate plan with the submission to cover the runoff of 2 dry wells in the back. The building itself will have some outside sconce lighting, Snow removal will be done by the owner. Now, snow removal, really his concern would be in front, at the front door, as well as the side door where the apartments are. As they say, it's built out almost to the footprint, so there's really not much accumulation that will take place. The style of the building has been designed in what would really be called a colonial style. You can see the exterior, it's attractive. There'll be hardy plank on the outside, and of course, all composite trim. If you notice on the picture that Shane has up on the screen right now, actually on all 4 of the pictures, we had a department meeting last Thursday, and the plan has raised the issue that those long walls on the side were somewhat bare looking, and they wanted those to have some different treatment. So what Phil Kritikos, the architect, has decided or has designed is that you can look at the side. He's going to run like a wainscoting up to about 1/3, and then there'll be a rain skirt on the top of that. And then he will continue from the top of the rain skirt to underneath that lower cornice with the hardy plank, so that it will match. It'll match the entire building. And that is one of the plans that the plan is suggested. In terms of utilities for the building, it is serviced obviously by public water and sewer. This building will be electric heat and air conditioning. They'll be using the ductless units. They'll all be separately metered. There will be a common water for the building itself, common water meter rather.
Thank you.
There is no elevator in the building. And one of the issues that in terms of the venting is all of the venting for the units will be up to the roof. The roof also contains a parapet, because I know this board has been concerned in the past about showing exposed vents. You won't see them from the street. And as I said, there's no elevator, so there'd be no issue with an elevator override showing on the roof itself. As I say, this is in the upgrade design standard area for the city, and I think it's an attractive upgrade for the building that's there now. I might point out that this neighborhood, particularly this part of Elm Street, it's a very similar building to what you see down there. I think of, like, for example, across the street, the Elm Street Bakery. Most of these buildings have a small retail establishment on the first floor and then multi-level on the second floor. As you get into that small business area, it's very similar in design to what some of these other buildings are. In fact, the building right next door is similar. There's a residential and then there's multifamily up on top. This little section of Elm Street is like almost like a little village to itself. And this is a very vibrant market that Mr. Kishar certainly wants to upgrade and keep in service. Just so you know, that just the background to this is we appeared before the Everett Zoning Board of Appeals as far back as last May of 2019. Seems like a lifetime ago now. And the zoning relief, which included a combination of variances and special permits, was granted by a 5-0 vote by the board. Mr. Kishar at some point changed architects to Mr. Kritikos, and then in developing the plans, we went back in front of the board and obtained a 6-month extension for the variance. As we were approaching the 1 year in May of 2020, we obtained a 6-month extension that would be good through, I think, November 4th of this year. One other thing I might point out is there's a little bit of a quirk in the Everett zoning. I call it a quirk because it seems counterintuitive that when you're in a business district, of all districts, if you want to have a mixed-use building, you have to also get the consent of the Everett City Council. So whatever the planning board's action is tonight or at a subsequent meeting, this won't be the last stop. We have an application that's going to be submitted to the City Council. They have to approve the mixed use as well. So that pretty much sums up the background to the building. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer it. As I said, the team is on board here, so they can answer it. I can defer to them. If you have any specific technical questions, I'll be happy to do that.
Mr. Delory, may I
Yes.
ask a question?
Yes.
Fred Cafaso. All right, I have a question. You said all the air conditionings will be by each apartment. So
Yeah.
are they split zones or something? Is that what it's called?
No, they're ductless. They're the Mitsubishis. They go up on the top
Right.
of the
So
wall.
where are the, we'll call it the air handlers, or the air handlers are interior, but where are the compressors?
I'll have to ask Phil that. On that ductless unit, Phil, can you respond on that?
They're gonna be on the parapet,
Up on the roof.
up on the roof. Behind the parapet, right above the first level. And all the drainage will be internal, and the AC condenser lines will also, since we're reframing, will be internal, so you won't see any of the typical, ductwork coming down the outside the building, because it will all be internal.
Bill, could you state your name and where you work as well? Just need. full
Yeah,
name.
I'm Robert Gatter, and I'm contractor and it's gonna be Mavros Company LLC pulling the permit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, Mr. Delory.
Yes.
Thank you for your concern with having this building have a parapet, because you're quite correct. This board's always very sensitive to penetrations through the roof showing, and parapets are the best idea in hiding that. So thank you for that. And in going through, basically the Everett design guidelines, I don't know if the architect has a copy of those, and they're pretty specific in a few items. And one of the items is these buildings require, or it's very heavily suggested, that they have 20% brick. I'm asking, I guess, maybe the architect that question. Do you know that, or am I correct in that assumption? Shane?
Let me. Yeah, because it's in the upgrade district, but I'm not sure entirely if it's a percentage that's required. Let me just check out
Well,
our.
let's put it this way. We're kind of sick and tired of looking at these buildings with hardy board on them, and they're about as boring as they come. This building's no exception. The design of the side of the building, I think that whatever officials told you to clean that act up and make it look a little better is absolutely correct. I was down there today looking around, and on the right side of your building, there's that little building that has its parking lot in front, and it's all brick. And it would appear to me, to make this building look like something, that the front elevation should be all brick from the bottom to the top. And that's your storefront, first floor, second and third floor should be brick. It should look like something. Right now, again, we're just getting another cement box. So I'm pretty sure that if you read the Everett Design Guidelines, it calls for 20%.
All right, I apologize. Let me just mention it quick. So in the architectural details, it's letter O. Building facades that face toward Main Street, Broadway, Lower Broadway, the Revere Beach Parkway, Ferry Street, Chelsea Street, Norwood Street, Elm Street, and Hancock Street shall have a full depth brick, not face brick, for a minimum of 20% of all opaque surfaces.
That's correct, because when that design lines started out, the board, the planning board, in our infinite wisdom, added some of the streets, and Elm Street was one of the streets that was added to have that 20% brick on it. And this is the very reason that it's a nice little area down there, as Mr. Delory points out. The building next door on the right has a nice brick facade all around it. And I think the intent of the board is to have these buildings have 20% brick. Do we need 20% brick on this building? I don't really think so. I would ask the other board members to acquiesce on that one and say, I think as I'm looking at these elevations right now, particularly the one on the top right, if that whole face were to be brick and maybe the return on the side, it would suffice. So if the architect would consider that, we'd appreciate it. Continuing along, we'd like to get, again, in the submittal process, the guidelines again say you're supposed to give us colors and materials that are going to be used, and you're to tell us where they're to be used. So if you do choose to use brick, as we hope you do, we'd like to know where, like to know the colors of the brick, would like a sample, a submittal, and the colors, the materials that you're going to put on there, the hardy board, the colors that you're going to paint it. That's one item. Storage areas. We don't seem to have any storage areas for the tenants in the building itself. So that was another item. Do we have any, let me ask you, I did go through these prints. do we have storage areas dedicated for the tenants to put their whatever, bicycle, surfboard? We go through this every time. These tenants are now being forced into these smaller apartments and they're not getting any storage area except what's in the apartment. And again, the guidelines do refer to a lot of these units should have some kind of storage area. So please keep that in mind also for when we come back in a month. Rubbish storage. Do you have a designated area for rubbish storage that would be enclosed? Could you show that on your next submittal, please? One of the questions we always ask, and the ZBA in their infinite wisdom tells these new developers that you don't need any parking and that you must tell your tenant they're not going to get an on-street parking sticker.
Mhm.
And the question always comes up, if you have a tenant shows up and he has 2 cars, do you lease to him? And that's only an off-the-cuff question. That's just trying to prove a fact around here that I think this no parking is not the way to go. But what do you do when you have a tenant who has a car and you tell him you can't have an on-street parking sticker for the city? So what does this guy do? Drive around the city looking to take up all the spots in the neighborhood, which is what the neighbors should and do complain about, which is a constant problem. Buildings like this going up with no parking. I don't fathom the ZBA's thoughts on it, but again, that's their business. And I just ask that question a lot. What do you do when a tenant has a car? Do you just tell them, oh, well, too bad, you're not gonna be able to park on the street? Question that a citizen would ask is, where does he park? Why do we continue with this insanity of not having parking? I'm not picking on the applicant by no stretch. You did everything fine. Your lawyer, Paul the lawyer, did a great job with everything. It's just a constant thought. Why do we continue down this road? Anyway, I hope you're writing all the things down I've mentioned. At the next meeting, we'll review. And what I'm most concerned is the elevations. When you say vents for your heating system, I mean, let's call them heat pumps or whatever you're putting in there. How about your vents for your stoves, microwaves, kitchen exhaust vents? Where are they going? You have a central system for kitchen exhaust vents, or are you going out the side of the building with them?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, on this particular building, we're gonna do a central system and bring it up through the roof.
Excellent, thank you. That's great. We appreciate that. Instead of having them all sticking out. Thank you. All right, I don't think I have many more questions.
I have, Leo, I have a question for you in
Yes,
terms of
Paul.
trying to respond. Shane, will you go back to the architectural renderings? I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
That one.
Okay,
So you're,
top
you're-
right-hand corner, Paul.
all right, so you're suggesting essentially what appears as sort of an orangey yellow in this. That's what you're talking about, that facade plus the return around the corner of the facade as being
Yeah,
brick?
Yes, and up for 2 stories. Should be the whole front of the building, Paul. 3 stories of brick. Again, it calls for 20%. This isn't something that I just thought I'd make up. This is part of the design guidelines. This is to be handed to every applicant. So the poor applicant doesn't come into the position he's coming into tonight or just finding out. It calls for, it strongly suggests, and we on the planning board are going to enforce the suggestion that these buildings start having brick on them. And a number of the previous applicants in this city have been, I won't say forced, were asked to put brick and they acquiesced and said, sure, not a problem. In particular, 302 Broadway, down at Sweetser Circle. That whole building is going to be a lot of brick on it. You can see Laurel Street going up right now. And you can see the brick on that building. When that came before us, that looked like this building. We asked them if they could incorporate some brick, and they did. And they did a fine job. And I appreciate you going by there to see what it looks like. And I intend to hopefully have this building mimic it. Again, I'm not saying I want exactly 20%. what you're gonna do might consist of 15%. I think, and only speaking for myself, that I'll be fine with that. But at least make it look like something, okay?
Right, but I think that, you know, again, we're at the design standards and we're looking at when it says suggest this, this is one of the reasons that we're coming before you. I mean, people can disagree, everybody has different tastes, but if we have to put brick on the building, or if the applicant wants to put brick on the building, I think, Leo, would much better look that if they did it, maybe wrapped the first floor in brick as opposed to going up with a brick facade.
I wouldn't be opposed to that, Paul. I would suggest that the architect design it. Again, your view would be to go around. Mine would be just come up the front, because one side of the building on the left is only feet away from the adjacent building. Is this building being totally torn down?
No,
Okay, okay, so as you're looking at that building now, on the right side of the building, it has cinder block, the old cinder blocks. One whole side is a CMU on the lower elevation. So what works for me to leave that CMU there, it is a masonry product, it's painted, and I wouldn't want to have to veneer over that. That would be counterproductive. That's why I'm saying, as you drive down Elm Street and you're looking at that building, to have that front bricked in, I think that might look much better. And again,
well, look, I can't speak for the design team. I'll have to talk to them about how they want to do that, Leo.
that's fine. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that we can achieve 20%, but if that's the position of the board, then we'll have to come back and take a look at it. I don't want to speak for them or commit on this right now. We'll have to take a look at it first.
Right. And again, Paul, as you know, I'm only speaking for myself, not the entire board. I try to say that all the time. And
Right.
and I have not spoken to any other board members on this whole thing. This is the first time go around. And that's why I'd like to suggest it this evening, that your architect and owner look at the possibility of doing that. And then we can come back with some elevation changes and see what we can do.
May I respond?
Sure.
All right, yeah, as far as the front and the turn-in on the right-hand side, that, to me, that would be a lot easier. Trying to do brick on the right-hand side with the old masonry block would be a little bit more difficult with the limited amount of space that we have there. So
I agree with you.
the front and that little return is something that it seems more feasible for us.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
All right.
But you're talking about, Leo, then going up over that orange area too, right? I want to be,
The whole front of the building, Paul, 3 stories of brick. Yeah, top to bottom in the return.
yeah.
So you have when you drive by and you look at it, you say, wow, look, it's a nice looking brick building, but it's only the front of it. One side you don't even get to see again. One side has CMU already down the bottom. Who's looking at the back? So we've achieved what I think the planning board's job is to make it look decent down there. And that's simply by doing the front of the building. First floor, all the way up, ground floor, all the way to the roof on the front in the return. And I'll leave that to the architect.
Well, we'll have to, we'll have to discuss that and come back with some suggestion on that.
That'll be fine. Absolutely.
Yeah, you and I, Leo, you know, we've had a disagreement over the brick presence on a building for a long time, but I understand what your position is.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that.
Let me just make sure that we have all the items, Leo. You've got the brick. You want to know about storage. You want to know about trash.
Mhm.
And there was one other thing. I'm sorry. I was right.
The colors of the colors that you're going to paint the building and the materials that you're going to use. Such as, I know you're saying hardy plank, but what color is it going to be? I don't want to, again, I say, we wake up someday and we got an orange building down there and we passed it. So we do like to know the colors.
Well, I think it looks like it's going to be gray. Am I right? Or is that just the color you suggested, Phil, on this?
That's just the color I selected. That could be, based on what the owner likes and, what's presentable
Sure.
and what's attractive, from the street.
Mhm.
Okay.
And on the brick, please, don't come back with that dark brick. I mean, a simple red, normal brick would look nice on there. unless you want to put some banding on into it. I see them, you can put a red brick with a black banding or a darker banding, whatever. But
Right.
don't come back with the whole front of that building with like a dark brown brick, okay?
Well, in response to that, I can't control the material, the color of the material in the program itself. The program selects the color. I can adjust it, but I can't always hit the color, the desired color. So it's sometimes it just, we get what we get.
That's why we ask for samples of we ask for submittals. A little stack of brick would be great, so we know what we're looking at.
I have a question for the contractor. Is he
Go ahead.
available?
Go ahead.
So, yes, you mentioned that the condensing units would be on the roof of the first floor, is that correct?
No, we have a parapet on the upper floor and we have a parapet on the lower. So I would say the second floor units would be on behind the parapet at above the first floor.
Yeah.
And the upper ones would probably be on the main roof.
And do you think that they will be out of sight on that
Yeah.
first floor parapet?
Yes, they're very small. They're about, I would say probably about 32 inches in height. So if I have them, basically set back, you should not see them from the street.
And how high is the parapet? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, no, but we'll make sure that they're obscured.
That's great, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm all set, thank you.
And I have a question, just administratively. If you want submittals on the materials chain, what would we do? Just drop them off at City Hall? I mean, that's a little difficult at this point.
No, if we hold another meeting, I can, you can just simply present it on the screen, and describe the material. You know, all these meetings are being recorded anyway, so we
Yeah.
hold you to kind of the material that you state and,
I mean, do you want the
presentation.
Do you want the composite board too, Leo? I mean, it's just white composite board. Do you want that material?
No, of course not, no, Paul, no, just a hardy board. I gotta know if it's 5, 4, 5, 6-inch hardy board. Does it
Okay.
have a reveal on it? Does it look like
Yep.
a shingle? Whatever, that's all.
Okay, all right.
Diane, you have something?
No, I was just going to say, you can just get the specifications online with the PDF that has the picture of the product and all the specifications as well.
Okay.
You can see that. And what's that orange, yellow side? Is that what we're talking about, the brick side?
I believe so, yes, yeah. At least, it only appears on the first floor.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that Leo has requested be bricked and then go up above that and brick the front. Am I
think
right
it-
with that, Leo? Is that right?
That's correct, Paul, yep.
I think it will look better if you would do the brick, like Leo mentioned, on the, the first, second, and third floor, and on the corner. And I believe he's using Revit, the program that he's drawing. He can change the material to exactly what it is. It's very easy to change it as well,
Mhm.
in terms of like color wise, because I know that yellow just may be a little off, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
but other than that, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think that the yellow was just for purpose of drawing a contrast between the rest of the building. I don't think that was going to be the final color, but
No, yeah, I understand.
Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
Should we continue with the public hearing?
Let's open up the public hearing and then, continue it, Mr. Chairman. So if you,
Okay, that's why we're opening the public hearing. The hearing is open. Any questions from outsiders?
all right, so we're on YouTube right now, so it's on like a 5-second delay. So, we'll wait on that. I didn't see anyone call in, when we entered the meeting, so I'll just hold off right now and see if anyone's gonna appear before us.
Yeah.
Check. All
Hearing none.
right, yep, I think we're good.
I'm gonna ask 3 times all those that are in favor of this petition. Is anyone in favor of this petition? Is anyone in favor of this petition? Third and final time, is anyone in favor of this petition? Having none, I declare that that part of the public hearing is closed at this time. Same thing for those that may be opposed to this petition. Is anyone opposed to this petition? Is anyone opposed to this petition? Third and final time, is anyone opposed to this petition? I declare at this time that that part of the public hearing is closed. Seeing that we have to come back before us, the chair will entertain a motion for continuance.
I'll make a motion for continuance to allow the applicant to address all the issues that were discussed this evening by the planning board and any and all other issues pertaining to this application until, when's our next meeting, Shane?
August 24th is our next regularly scheduled one.
Until August 24th, again, via Zoom?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so that'll be it. That's the
Second.
motion.
We have a second?
The second motion.
Motion made by Mike, is it?
Yes.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
All right. Leo Pisano,
Yes,
Michael O'Connor,
Yes.
Cheyenne Rangle,
Yes.
George D'Angelo,
Yes.
Frederick Capasso.
Yes.
All right.
Motion has been continued to our next regular meeting. Thank
All
you
right,
very
Paul.
much.
All right, Paul, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, what we got?
Next order of business, please.
All right, number 3, we have a minor modification to a site plan for 302 Broadway. The proposal is to amend a previously approved site plan review that was approved in September of 2017 to increase the unit count of a building from 10 units to 15 units. So let's grab that in front of me.
Is the proponent here?
Yes, Mr.
Attorney
Chairman,
Ross is here.
Anthony Rossi, Mr. Chairman, how are you?
Good, thank you, Mr. Attorney Rossi.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Anthony Rossi representing the petitioner regarding 302 Broadway. He recently went in front of the Board of Appeals to get granted relief for parking for the,
Used to work for us.
excuse me? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So from 10 to 15 residential units, he got the appropriate relief. Is in relation to site plan approval, Carlson Design attached a letter just talking about what the changes were, and most of it, 99% of it's interior changes. As far as the site plan is concerned, the exterior change, if you look at the actual windows on the second and third floor, he replaced the windows with 2 sliding glass patio doors, have been added to floors 2 and 3, and that's in the rear of the building. So it was 1 single sliding patio door and window. It's now 2 sliding glass patio doors. That's essentially the only site plan change. Everything else is in the interior of the unit. We will be going before the board on a later date for amendment of the special permit inclusionary, because as a result of adding these 5 additional units, he will increase the inclusionary unit count from 1 to 2. So out of these 5 new units, 1 of those units will now be an inclusionary unit. That's at a later date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as because of this change and modification, has he decreased the size of these apartments?
Correct.
He had
So, correct. We made, these are all, the new units that were added were all 1-bedroom units. Essentially, he got rid of a bunch of the 2-bedroom units and made them into 1-bedroom, thinking that with this new market with smaller units and so forth, it would probably be a better goal to get those micro units in there. And they're not micro, essentially 400 square feet. They're still around 500, 600 square feet units. They're 1-bedroom units. But yes, we have not changed the footprint at all. So everything was all in the interior shell.
Thank you.
did you eliminate the common area?
So there was one, I believe, on the 3rd floor. There was a community room on the 3rd floor.
Right.
That community room became a 1-bedroom unit.
What if we didn't want you to do that?
The re- sorry.
I just
Sorry.
say, what if we wanted that community room back in?
The reason why he did the community room, Leo, Ms. Pizzano, sorry, is because that would be one that we're gonna have to do an affordable unit. And that would be, we add another unit to make it affordable. And really, because it was mostly 2-bedroom units, Leo, these are all now predominantly 1-bedroom units. People don't want that type of, with a small project, COVID friendly, everybody has their own space, their own bedroom. That's these multi-bedroom units now, I think, are starting to fade out more than not. And that's why he went this direction.
Imagine waking up some morning and someone told you you had a shelter in place in unit number 11, 3 months, or in a 500 square foot bedroom room for 3 months. This whole concept, I think you were going the wrong way in that, Mr. Rossi. You would think that you would stop putting in these micro units based on the corona, where people are being asked to shelter in place and stay inside their apartment 2-3 months out of whack in a 400, one of these 375 some of these they're coming up with. That's why when you have a common space, the Everett Design guidelines almost insist that you start having common areas so that people will at least have somewhere to go into and know what a neighbor looks like. Making these units smaller, I don't agree with it, but you got the go ahead to do it, so I can't argue with it. But I think micro units is probably one of the worst things that you can do right now, considering taking a human being and telling them to get inside 400 square feet for the next 2 months. And now this is nothing no one could anticipate. I'm not arguing the point. I'm just saying, you don't use the excuse, I'd appreciate it, that we should build smaller ones because of Corona. I find it just the opposite. It should be a little bit bigger to give humans a living space, not a cage to live in, 300, 400 square feet. Anyway, if you're doing away with that common area, I would, whatever, I guess you're doing away with it, aren't you, Tony?
I mean, we're adding another affordable unit, but I will tell you, Leo, if I can, that these aren't 400 square foot units. These are pretty large 1-bedrooms. If you look at
Yeah, they are. I'm not arguing the point. I've gone over this thing before. I didn't like the idea of it changing from, you had 10, we loved the building the way it was. And you're going to 15, I don't like it that much because now you're crimping people again. All it is money driven. Get more apartments into a smaller space. No one's doing anything for the tenant or for the city. This is all money driven. So you're taking out a community room to put in a unit 12 or whatever it is there. I don't buy it, but I can't change that because it's inside the building. But I think if you go to those Everett Design guidelines, you might start looking into more community areas in your buildings, Mr. Rossi, since you're doing a lot of business here in Everett.
No, I understand. And I will tell you, Leo, I'm building myself. I build a lot. The problem is a lot of these, the reason why a lot of people are going to 1-bedroom units or studios, especially post-COVID, what happens is in these full amenity buildings or any type of amenity buildings, all the common areas that are those amenities, they shut them down because they have to prevent people getting infections and sickness. That's what's happening all throughout Boston and everywhere else. In fact, most of these schools, they're renting hotels because they're afraid to put them in dorms and closing out the whole floor. So they want places that they can get them clean and they're secluded with themselves. That's what I meant by that. I didn't mean.
No, I know. I agree with you, Tony, but eventually, God willing, this virus will be under control and in a couple of years, hopefully eradicated. And at that point, we look back and say, geez, maybe we should not have done away with the common space because now people are looking for it. That's all.
No, I understand.
What's going to happen in the future? This virus is not going to be around forever. Hopefully.
Leo, I hope it's not 2 years. I hope it's 2 months.
I agree with you.
Yes.
I agree with you, Tony. Absolutely. So anyway, thank you for your thoughts on it.
Thank you.
And just to make a statement too on that, I know Attorney Rossi stated that it would be an affordable unit. So the applicant is going to have to come back before this board at the next meeting because the inclusionary zoning will require a public hearing for 2 consecutive weeks in the newspaper and a butter notification. But that's a question of where that affordable unit is going to be located. It's working with DHCD and locating these affordable units. And, you know, I'm assuming one's going to be on the second floor and one's going to be on third floor, because, you know, you can't put all your affordable units on the first floor and the smallest units. You know, they like to diversify that. But yes, that's true. They have to come back before this board for the inclusionary zoning. But yes, the zoning board did approve for the change from 10 units to 15 units. And actually, Building Commissioner Gene Soper just actually attended the meeting. So if you have any questions for him in terms of the variance or any specifications, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them, but they did receive a variance for the change.
Any other questions, comments?
All set, thank you.
That's it.
Does the board have any recommendations or what's their feelings?
You're looking for a motion, Mr. Chairman?
That would probably be it.
Well, I think we get a, let's see, do we have to have public notice, or? Yeah, we can have any more discussion with the board, or if anyone has any other comments.
No other questions? Anybody chiming in on this, Shane?
Let me check if we have any people commenting on the Zoom page. I don't have any chat, and I don't have anyone coming in for, I do not have anyone from the YouTube page. So, no, we're all good. And just being that they're minor modifications, it's not a public hearing, so just board comments.
So it's just a request that they're asking for a minor modification.
Correct, as presented.
So the board, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for favorable action for minor modifications to site plan for 302 Broadway.
Second the motion.
Motion made and seconded for the minor modification for 302 Broadway. Roll call vote, please.
All right, Leo Pisano,
Yes.
Michael O'Connor,
Yes.
Cheyenne Rangel,
Yes.
George D'Angelo,
Yes.
and Chairman Kafasa.
Yes. Motion has been granted.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Rossi.
All right. See what we got going on now. All right.
Next order, please.
Sure. We have a minor modification to a site plan for 85-80/87 and 119, 110 Boston Street. A proposal to amend a previously approved site plan, which was most recently approved by the planning board of April 2019 for a 650 unit development with change in site layout of number of buildings on site and reduction of retail square footage from 13,507 square feet to 9,000 square feet. And the applicant.
proponent here?
Mr. Chairman, Anthony Rossi, I'll be introducing the team on behalf of the petitioner, my client, if I may start. Anthony Rossi, and a little bit, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, this was an approved site plan by 111 Boston Street LLC and East Elm Street Realty LLC, and approved allowed for the construction of a mixed-use 650-unit residential building consisting of 3 buildings, with each building containing 7 stories, a total of 13,507 square feet of retail complex, and 502 parking space garage, and 140 by 20 swimming pool, and 832 parking spaces. The new proposed site plan with the applicant is 111 Boston Street LLC and East Elm Street Realty LLC, and submitted by Greystar, will contain a mixed-use residential building consisting of 2 buildings, with each building containing 7 stories and 2 retail complexes of 4,500 square feet, totaling 9,000 square feet, 2 structured parking garages with a total of 756 spaces, 2 swimming pools, and 792 parking spaces. What has been requested for minor modification of site plan, and that's before the board today, it's basically the same unit count. Instead of 3 buildings, it's 2 buildings. The new plan, I could be mistaken, I believe is 6 stories, not 7 stories. And the retail went from 13,507 to 9,000 square feet. And the parking went from 832 to 785. The requirement was 764. And they'll talk a little bit about why are they doing it in this manner and what they've done, and a little bit talking about Greystar, which is the largest residential developer, I believe, in the world.
Yes. Thanks, Anthony, for your introduction. My name is Tammy Cobson, so I'm a Senior Director at Greystar based in Boston. And I just wanted to note quickly, Shane, I want to just share the presentation.
Sure, let me take my sharing off and you can share yours.
Thank you. Okay, pull this up. Everyone can just confirm that they can see my screen.
Sure, we can see it.
Great. So thanks for the introduction. Mr. Rossi introduced us as we are, purchasing the land from 111 Boston Street and East Elm Street Realty, and aim to be the developer, the contractor, and the management company. So we've worked very closely with them and hope to move forward with the transaction pending, the board's approval on site plan approval of the modified site plan, the new stormwater discharge permit, and then the amended special permit for inclusion rezoning. Our team has worked with and on this modification, and we have really aimed to work within what has been approved already and to make minor changes so that we can, expedite and move this forward. Our team consists of Tom Schultz from TAT, the team at Bola Engineering, Sanborn Head for Geotechnical Environmental, Dan Connolly from ML Strategies. And then we have also updated our reports and memorandums by Jeffrey Dirk from Van Ness, and then Maloney Properties, who previously worked on the inclusion rezoning to keep consistency. This new design really looks at, there we go. The new design looks at a scheme for 2 buildings, as Anthony said, rather than 3, resulting in the parcel being divided into 2 lots, with each building being in compliance with the zoning and meets all the conditions and requirements. At Greystar, it's really been our priority, and we have proven, as Anthony says, we're one of the biggest developers in the world, and we manage over 500,000 rental units across the US. And so we aim to construct high quality living environments and really maintain residents' happiness and loyalty. But we also want to make sure that we satisfy and it's valued by the surrounding community. And we believe that at the beginning, great buildings start with really thoughtful design. And so we want to present these minor modifications, thoughtful changes that we have made. So in summation, if you look at this slide, the design has been modified with the gross area reduced, as Anthony said, from 3 buildings to 2, from 7 stories to 6, reduced the retail from 13,507 to 9,000, but increased the amenity sizes, as I'll show you on the next slide. And then the parking from 832 to 785 units in 2 separate structured parking garages. So you'll note over here that the 3 building one, and then the 2 building that I'll speak through. It remains 650 units, which is still, and maintains the 5% affordable, which is 33 affordable units. The unit mix has been changed slightly just to support the demand. And the other changes are that we, updated the traffic study from July 10th that shows fewer trips on a daily and peak hour basis. So actually a reduction in the impact on the transportation infrastructure. And so I just want to walk through with you the modifications that have been made, which we believe create a really compelling design. So again, just to briefly go through, the retail has been decreased. There is no storage that is required. The amenity space, what we have done is increase that from 9,637 square feet to 19,000 square feet. And you can see on this next plan how we've really increased kind of those amenity spaces across 2 buildings. The unit types have been amended slightly, hence why the inclusionary zoning will go back and amend that. So on this slide shows you how we really believe that this is going to allow for vibrancy and activity on Vale Street. And what we've aimed to design and create is a social and pedestrian plaza, which enforces social interaction and community. We provided more and varied amenities to each building community, and each building to have their own amenities package. We've created a demand-driven unit mix, and we believe in overall, better experience. So if you see from just these movement and arrow indications, the building becomes really permeable, accessible, and active. And we have really aimed to include all the feedback which the board has provided, and feedback from all our meetings and with those on this call. Then we have taken into consideration the surrounding urban fabric and the changes that will occur to the future in Everett. And we've been really thoughtful about the user's experience. And similarly, the world has changed. And so we wanted to provide retail that maintained the vibrancy of Vale Street through really activating it and creating retail spaces with outdoor opportunities. So we amended that slightly so that it's constantly filled with, Vale Street's constantly filled with this activity and energy. And then finally, I just wanted to note that, as I mentioned before, the intention is that Greystar is not only the developer, but the contractor and the property manager. So we'll be involved in the very beginning and continue to be a big part and continuing part of the Everett community. A condition for the construction is we understand that it must commence within 2 years of site plan approval, and we intend on starting construction Q2 of 2021. Hence, we're really grateful to be in front of the board today to push this project forward and push these design details with architects, consultants, and subs so that we can deliver this on time and on budget for the city of Everett and its and people who live in this building. And next, let me know if there's any questions, but Bola will obviously take you through the rest of the details of the project.
Great, thanks, Tammy. So this is Steve Moderano from Bowler. Just wanted to dig into some of the changes and get maybe a little more granular into some of the conditions that came with the previous approval and how we incorporated those into the drawing, taking the opportunity as we looked at how, to advance the building design, but it's also how do we do that and incorporate some of the conditions and hit some of the goals, which really was, there were some challenges with grading along Vale Street, and how do you make that retail speak to Vale Street and be successful. The initial approval, and there's some flooding concerns and future flood maps that we understand that are coming towards Everett. So resiliency pushes the building up while the sidewalk grade is low. So was there a different approach that we could come up with? And we have, and we can look at the plans in a second, but that was a main driver of how do you develop Vale Street to make it the best environment for successful retail and the activity, pedestrian, bicycles along that corridor. There's some ADA compliance around the entire property to get proper sidewalk widths and ramps and crossings and improve that whole pedestrian realm around the site. There's some engineering and construction challenges with better streets, milling and overlaying, so you get better roads around, and those are captured on the plans now, as well as some utility requirements for storm drain and sanitary sewer and a water main loop. And so those are some conditions we've been able to get into the drawings that you have in front of you now. And really that's capturing some of the conditions that this board suggested this project take on during the original approval. And then one of the last bullets that I glossed over was we've worked some designated loading and sort of back of house operations in a designated spot. And I'll show you on the site plans now how we've accomplished those things. If you want to click forward, Tammy. So the site plan here, this is what Tammy had on, I don't have the graphics, but on the right side, you can see we've blown up Vale Street. And that little blow up section is really just so you can see what we've done there. And it's very similar to, so we've taken pieces of the previous approval, the previous design, some work with the transportation department on setting some standards for some of these new complete streets. What do the complete streets want to look like in Everett? What did they do with the Pioneer next door? And we kind of took all those pieces and came up with this Vale cross section, which includes an 8-foot parking lane. Then there's a 1.5-foot buffer of pavers, which have a couple purposes, but mostly to give a buffer between the parked cars and the bike lane. Then the gray going north-south in that image is a dedicated bike lane, so 5-foot wide, full width bike lane. Then you have an 8-foot, what's envisioned 8-foot concrete sidewalk, and we've put that street tree strip in the sidewalk area there, and that gives a nice separation between the bicycles and the pedestrians. And then the building setback an additional 8 to 10 feet beyond that to get some landscaping, some hardscape for the retailers. So there's sort of that street frontage zone for the building. So it's a pretty generous width zone, but it's got a lot of uses going on there. And this is similar to what was approved by this board and through the transportation department's work on 2nd Street in front of the 35 Garvey Street project. So trying to get that consistency. It's the similar type of uses that we're trying to get in this zone, which was part of the original approval to get these. So we think this is a very effective way to get all those pieces in there with buffers from each other, and then everybody can use the space in a different way. Are you a pedestrian? Are you a vehicle? Are you a bicyclist? But we've made accommodations for all. Wrapping around the corner, if you're going up Vale Street and you took a left on Boston, or more if you were coming Boston Street towards Vale, there's a bump in there that we've introduced that's new. Really, that's for the success of the retail on that corner, whether they're getting a commercial delivery or short-term parking for those retailers. And again, we've taken a piece of what the Pioneer did across the street. They have a bumped-in area for parking there. I think there's some loading. Ours is really just a parking zone that could be regulated to short-term parking. So really trying to be consistent of the streetscape, but get the uses that we need to make this corridor feel the way it needs to feel. And there's some pedestrian easements that we're introducing to give the proper widths for these various elements, because there's not enough width in the current right of way today. So we are using some of the private property to supplement the public property to get the right public realm around the edges of this building. And then we do have new sidewalks all the way around the property, like we said, to make them ADA compliant. And we have new crossings with the reciprocal ramps will be rebuilt as well. Through the center of the two buildings here, we've changed sort of the feel of the interior of the site. This feel will be more an urban street, and we've incorporated some elements into that private driveway to make sure we're calming traffic, to create that center core as a real pedestrian first focused. It functions as pedestrians and vehicles, but it wants to feel more pedestrian in the middle of the site, which we'll do with some type of a change in paving through there to really signify where it's the pedestrian first zone. And at the ends, you'll see we've curled the road a little bit again to get people slowly coming in and going out of this area. So just really some traffic calming, but continue that street tree presence through the center quarter, and you get this nice connectivity of blocks through the development, and it feels like urban blocks rather than some driveways that were wiggling through the property. And I guess there's a dog park that's been worked in, and some outdoor amenity space as you get towards Elm Street. East Elm towards the end of the private road on the, I guess, what is that? The southeast side of that private road. You can see on the left side of the page, there's some green space that will be programmed with outdoor amenity space for the residents and pets alike. If we can click forward, just a quick show of utilities, which really we've run our utilities primarily through that center street. There's drainage underneath there. There's water, sewer. It comes through that corridor. Some of it goes out to Boston Street. Some goes out to Vale Street. And we ultimately loop a water main, which the water department had asked, connecting East Elm through the private driveway up Vale Street and to Boston, just to enhance their water system in the area and as well provide water to the development. So it gives us an opportunity to bring fire hydrants and protection into the development and frankly down Vale Street, which is pretty underserved by fire hydrants. So we're going to enhance that area with some fire protection that doesn't exist today. So that's a very high level, fast overview of utilities. Happy to answer more questions, but if none at this time, we can turn it over to Tom Schultz from the architectural team.
Great, thanks, Steve. Again, Tom Schultz from the architectural team. You know, as Tammy and Steve have been saying, I think this project is tantamount to the permitted design in terms of the metrics. We have the same unit count at 650, but with greater benefits for the city and our neighbors. The overall building form is 2 6-story double-loaded corridor buildings that have a single-loaded wing that wrap around the multi-story garage. This allows the garage to be concealed with only 20% exposed. It also allows the vast difference between the permitted design and this design is that ground floor is no longer parking. It's other uses that will activate the streetscape, primarily residential, but amenity spaces and retail as well. Those 650 units are built out, separated into 2 buildings. Building 1 is closest to the Chelsea line, sort of up on the page here. It has 330 units, 91 studios, 142 1-beds, and 97 2-beds. There's 380 structured parking spaces in that garage. Building 2, which is closer to, which is along Boston Street, next to the Pioneer, that has 320 units, 88 studios, 137 1-bedrooms, and 95 2-bedrooms. There's 379 structured spaces in that parking garage. And then there are 26 surface spaces, parallel spaces on that new driveway that Steve was talking about. So that brings us up to a total of 785 total parking spaces for the entire site. As Tammy was mentioning, there's 19,000 square feet of amenities, spaces such as lounges, fitness center, yoga room, dining room, work pods, co-working area, pool courtyards, dog walk area, and 2 roof decks. So from the outset of our design, we had the spirit of the Everett design guidelines at the forefront of our thoughts. Breaking down that industrial superblock was our primary goal, and creating these 2 standalone building footprints with that publicly accessible driveway. I'm going to go to the next slide, Tammy. Yeah, so this is a perspective at the corner of Vale Street and Boston Street. So you see the retail right on that corner. The overall master plan design strategy was to create a real strong sense of place here, and not just for the residents on an internal basis, but also for the public as well and our perimeter. We have a pretty significant amount of impact we're going to have to this neighborhood along our streetscape. We've really tried to develop a strong urban edge along each of those streets and along the newly created driveway as well. That bifurcating the site, we've enhanced that urban street grid and really created those urban blocks like Steve was mentioning creating better connectivity from a pedestrian and an automotive standpoint. And also really just creating a meaningful pedestrian experience along these edges, especially Vale Street, as Steve went into great detail about that pedestrian easement we're providing. You know, we have 535 feet of frontage along Vale Street that we're going to provide that bike path and really stitch in between what's happened at Pioneer to the north and what's happening just in Chelsea at the Vero project to our east. Our primary public entrances, building lobbies, residential units, amenity spaces, leasing offices are all organized on these public streets to enhance that street life, counter to what was originally proposed with all the parking being at grade. It's really a way to activate the street. And those grade changes that Steve was mentioning with the floodplain being up at an elevation, we have to get those residential units up, but also really meet the street level as well and meet Vale Street. So we're dealing with those challenges inside the building, which allows us to bring down the curtain wall or the storefronts that align or line up along Vale Street, really creating a more robust retail presence and increasing that viability of retail while enhancing the public experience. The amenity space has also been lined along Vale Street in an effort to activate that streetscape with the fitness and co-working space, providing a true 24/7 activation along Vale Street. Next slide, Tim. So here's an image of that interior driveway. So you can see we're trying to activate that just as much as we are around the site. The wrapped approach on the garage allows those spaces again to be at the ground level and really engage the street. We've raised the grade in the center of our site to get up to that future floodplain so that we can have some secondary entrances off of our driveway as well. Again, just trying to activate that as much as we are activating Vale Street. The driveway enhances that urban grid feel, acts like a street, unlike the previous design that had a rather circuitous layout of parking lots that you were driving through. This is going to feel more like an urban street with a typical cross section and layering of parallel parking, street trees on a maximum spacing of 30 feet, benches, bike racks, street lights. Next slide, Tim. So these are the elevations that were submitted in the package. You can see the bottom is the southwest elevation or the East Elm Street. The top one being Boston Street elevation. The overall design strategy for the elevations is really to create a contemporary building language that fits in contextually. The facade is organized sort of by the base middle top approach, which is commonplace in mixed use housing projects. But in this project, it's further articulated through changing scales of material and fenestration, window groupings, and color and detailing that you see in these elevations. In general, the strategy is really to have a strong base or a podium that is detailed to create a pedestrian scale along the streetscapes. And then the upper portions are a combination of planks and panels that are punctured by vertical window groupings, which are typically organized in size to celebrate what's happening on the inside of the building. Is it a living space or a private bedroom? So the windows will create a rhythm and a hierarchy based on that. I'm gonna go to the next slide, please, Tammy. So these are just more elevations, the bottom being the primary elevation on Vale Street. So you can see all the lower two floors have a lot of glass. And that's really to bring that retail and amenity space down to the street. One thing that's not really shown in these plans, but I wanted to talk to is that the mechanical equipment is primarily located on the center of the building and the roof, which limits the sight lines from the abutting streets to screen that as much as possible. Next slide, please, Tammy. For materials, we have this, we're trying to create a new identifiable aesthetic that will have materials like brick, metal, cementitious panels that are all detailed in a distinctive way and varied way. The ground floor amenity elements, like I mentioned before, will be primarily of glass storefronts and metal frame elements appropriate for an urban public space. The amenity spaces will have a lot of glass, really providing that welcoming presence to the building and vibrancy of the surrounding areas. The landscaping you'll see throughout the project also follows a similar approach to the buildings, in that has tactile surfaces at the street level, varying materials, and a real thoughtfulness to the design. You can also see on here, rendered a little bit, is some of the louvers and vents that we'll have just as part of our mechanical system. And those are all going to be painted to match the surrounding field material. I think we have one more slide, Tammy. No, that's it. Okay, great. So I guess I'll just leave it with that. A few thoughts on the design guidelines. I feel like a lot of what I said has been sort of lifted directly from the design guidelines with such a great project. And the great thing of being in such a transformative district is that what's good for the residents is going to be good for the revitalization of the district. So we're really excited to be part of such an amazing development in this district in Everett.
Great, thanks, Tom, and thank you, Steve, as well.
Sorry to interrupt. Just, is there any questions from the board in regards to what we've seen so far, or just in general?
Yeah, yes, I do have a couple of questions, Shane.
Sure.
One of them would be to you, Shane.
Yes.
Has all the city departments reviewed these changes?
We sent them around. I didn't necessarily receive comments from everyone, but the applicant will also be before the board to change their inclusionary zoning at the August meeting. So, you know, internally, we did review this, and there's been meetings with the applicant before they submitted, but they did submit this application to us.
Well,
and we did share it with the department heads.
Yeah, I'm talking about 15% landscaping. Did someone do a takeoff to find out that they are giving us that? Stormwater management. We spent 4 years on this project. I don't know, no one really has a history, but a few of us on the board. We spent 4 years on this project. We've gone through cull checks underneath for water storage. Mr. Rossi knows all about them. He's probably more of an engineer on them than an engineer, as we spent so much time. We reviewed Vale Street. Since day one, we've put certain criterias into this project. I hope all that effort is being transferred over into this project, because to call this project a minor modification, it's a stretch. As far as I'm concerned, this should have been in for a complete site plan review, not a minor modification. You don't take 3 buildings, make 2, and all these changes and call it minor. But someone in the city, Shane, and I'm asking you, who chose to make this a minor modification versus a complete review?
Per the decision,
this is Tony Sousa. Just wanted to chime in. So going back to the decision back in 2019, the former applicant came before and got their approval. The very first condition leaves it up to the board to make the determination if the project is minor, or if a modification is considered minor or major. Major modification would require a public hearing. A minor mod would not. The scope of the project is still 650 units. They did reconfigure the composition of the units. The open space is at 29%. They went from 3 buildings down to 2. The peer review comments still stand. The peer review was done by McMahon, and McMahon did the transportation, the traffic peer review. And then we also had another peer review as well with respect to the sewer and stormwater calculations. The new owner would essentially inherit the conditions that we set out back in the most recent decision back in 2019. There's over 50 conditions. I mean, there's 57 conditions there, and which also included the requirements of Chapter 15 and 15A. This was back in the decision of 2019. The plan of record, the minor modification, the plan of record would change. The number of units have not changed. Sure, the size of the buildings have, the quantity of buildings have changed, but all of the other elements of the previous decision would be required of the applicant. So for example, it was condition 13 back in the 2019 application that says that they are to comply with Chapter 15 and 15A. They are to submit an application. This is no different than what 111 Boston LLC was required to do. Prior to construction, they are still to submit a plan to the planning board showing in detail the proposed reconstruction of Vale Street and Boston Street. And there's a series of, to address surface flooding issues. We all remember those that were on the board, this being discussed, to provide transportation and bicycle improvements, the specification, the drainage and infrastructure, road profile. These were all elements that were discussed with engineering, with DPW and so on. And so that, that would also still stand. And like I said, there's a total of 57 different conditions. TEC was the peer reviewer that looked at the infiltration systems, and the applicant is still to perform the test pits by the board's peer reviewer consultant, TEC. They've basically, through this, they will inherit the conditions of the project. We didn't just put a handful of conditions here. We did do 2 peer reviews at the time, and those would still stand on with this application. They are to file for inclusionary zoning. Yes, the retail has also decreased in this, but it still complies with the new zoning there. And so I just wanted to provide that as background. Yes, it's still up to the board to make the determination if it's a minor or a major modification. They're not increasing the net number of units. They're reconfiguring the number of 1s and 2s, perhaps more desirable. There is 29% open space on the site. Floor level has decreased. Retail has decreased slightly as well, but still complies. So looking as a whole, this is where the petitioner comes in and puts the request in. And so if the board wishes to grant approval, they're still inherent too. If we do a public hearing, so be it, major modification, then we'll go through again another full lengthy process and indefinite how much more time we would spend on this, but I defer that up to the board.
That's
Here,
part of the
here
last.
you have an applicant who is essentially going to inherit a previously approved project. The plan of record has changed, so it is indeed going to be a modification to the plan. They are still going to be responsible to follow through on all of the conditions we established back in 2019. And correct, I mean, we've started in 17 with 1 site plan approval. Believe there was one in 18 and then 19 as well. So defer to the board, but this is where we stand.
Tony, I agree with you. We do not want to go through this whole thing again. But all I want to make sure is that this board is protected in the fact that they are inheriting the 57 conditions and they know what they are, in that this board doesn't really have anything to do with how many apartments they have inside. We are concerned with just the way the building looks on the outside. The drainage doesn't really, again, I guess, come under us because stormwater management now, the city engineer is handling all that. So I guess all I'm asking is that after all the effort we put into this, they own all the conditions and they know what the conditions are. Would that be right, Tony? Mr. Souza?
Yes, that would be correct, but would be best to get the applicant on record to say that they would inherit these conditions.
Well, that's probably
They
where
have
I'm going with this, Tony. I'm not going to walk away from this and simply think that, okay, I hope they know, would like to know that they know, that's all. And it's only in fairness to the owner also to know what they're buying here with this project. It's not a great deal, I don't think, I just, nothing really out of the norm here. But we did a lot of work to get those 57 conditions, and I'm not gonna let them go down the drain. So if they buy into them, and I'll accept your word that they are buying into it, then we can certainly keep it at a minor modification.
And you don't have to take my word for it. I'll defer to the applicant to attest to it.
Leo, if I may, Mr. Bizzano, I don't represent Greystar on this. I mean, I represented the current owner, but Greystar will speak to this. But we spent a considerable amount of time with Greystar. They received the whole entire package. They're well aware of the prior conditions and the prior approvals, and they'll speak to what they're inheriting and what's moving forward. And they spent, I think it's a beautiful project what they're presenting, and I think they'll talk more about that. Tammy, can you chime in relation to the conditions and same?
Yes, I can. And so we have done a thorough due diligence on this project. All of our consultants have reviewed all the documents that have been approved prior. And we understand what's involved, and we're committed to seeing this project through. So we have online as well our legal attorney, Vic from Sullivan and Worcester. We also have, as mentioned, Dan from ML Strategies. And we have reviewed this, and we've done a lot of due diligence over the past couple of months. And so we understand that there's been a lot of history, there's been a lot of work, and we most definitely aim to fulfill what has been time has spent looking into this and resolving issues and trying to make this a better project for the community.
Okay, but I just, one last comment, and I'm done. I mean, one of the major concerns that we had, the conditions, and Mr. Montelli at the Pioneer was concerned with is during construction, that his people have full access down Vale Street, a protected way of getting from his building up to the MBTA Silver Line. So these are the conditions. Mr. Souza, are you still here? I guess he's gone. Well, there's a lot of-
Yes, I am.
Yeah, he's over
Okay,
here. Sorry.
well, Tony, all those conditions, like making sure Andy's people can get from the Pioneer down to the Silver Line, all those conditions, and I'm gonna leave it at that, okay? I figure if you're saying that our city engineers have gone through it and they're fine with it and you're fine with it, then it would seem that a minor modification would be fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the board? The chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion for favorable action for minor modifications to site plan of 85, 87, and 119, the old 110 Boston Street. Everett.
Motion is made and seconded to accept the minor modification to site plan 85, 87, and 119, formerly 110 Boston Street. Plan as proposed. Roll call vote, please.
Sure. George D'Angelo,
Yes.
Cheyenne Rangle,
Yes.
Leo Pisano,
Yes.
Michael O'Connor,
Yes.
Chairman Cafaso, Frederick Cafaso.
Yes,
All right.
motion is passed.
Thank
All
you.
right.
everyone.
Thank you. And we'll see you guys next month for inclusionary zoning. Like the previous project, they'll have to submit a site plan review for the modification to the inclusionary zoning. But, all right, cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Last but not least, we have Mr. Antonelli here. All right. Let me just read the legal notice for the last project. All right, so it's a legal notice for the Everett Planning Board, public hearing notice for item 4, 110 Tremont Street. In accordance with provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 19 of the Everett Zoning Ordinance, the Everett Planning Board will conduct a virtual public hearing on Monday, July 20th, 2020, at 7 p.m. online to be viewed on YouTube. Here's the link. To consider the above listed application in connection with the proposal to redevelop a former industrial building into a 48-unit, 2-story structure residential building as shown on plans 110 Tremont Street by LaFriend Architects. The site plan on a parcel shown on the site plan being a parcel land reference by the Assessors Department D0-04-000007. The application with narrative and site plan were received on May 14, 2020. The plans are entitled 110 Tremont Street, were prepared by LaFrance Architects of Cambridge, Massachusetts, 02139, located at 678 Mass Ave, and prepared by the owner at 120 Tremont Street, LLC. A copy of the application and plans are on file and available in the office of the city clerk in the Department of Planning and Development, both located at City Hall 484 Everett, MA 02149, and can be inspected online at thecityofeverett.com/449/planning-board or by request by email. All persons interested or wishing to be heard on the proposal should appear at the time and place designated above. As items may be continued to a later date, please contact Tony Souza of the Department of Planning and Development at tony.souza@ci.everett.ma.us or 617-394-2334 before attending. But if the proponent is here, be happy to start.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Antonelli.
Yes.
Would you like to propose your project to us, please?
Greg Antonelli, manager 120 Tremont Street LLC. I'm here tonight for 110 Tremont Street in Everett. A 48-unit conversion of an industrial building that currently sits on the parcel. It's an existing building that's going to maintain its footprints. It's going to maintain the same area, the same setbacks. Steel, cinder block, concrete building that now has some industrial components in it. There's some manufacturing and some storage. The proposal calls for rehabbing the whole building, cutting in windows, redoing the whole facade from top to bottom, and putting in 48 one-bedroom units. That's basically it.
All right, does the board have any questions?
Why don't we have any comments before us from the, any of the city departments?
We had comments provided in the staff report. I sent them out early today, but I can check them over. We also have Jim Soper here. If you would like to present your comments, Jim, or I can read them. Up to you.
Well,
I prefer you just read.
I'll just read. Okay. So, so we have some comments from Mr. Soper in regards to this new plan on Lot B should not affect the prior site plan approval for the development on Lot A. That was a question that the department agreed with in terms of the project that was adjacent to it. We're going to need a new plot plan with the dimensions from building to lot lines. As provided in the staff report, we did have information from the previous proposal that showed those dimensions. So we have an idea, but we just need it with the new proposal. The number of units allowed is 70 per acre, which would be equal to 47.81. So being that it would be allowed at 70 per acre, you couldn't round up to 48, so it would go down to 47. And we would need a verification that the open space would be at least 15%. So those are the comments from ISD. And in terms of other comments from engineering, the applicant will have to apply for a stormwater permit through 15 and 15A. Curb to curb for utilities when putting in the utilities, a new water line. But being that there was a project there previous, we're assuming we have an idea of the locations. And there's a concern of the flooding in the area and how the project will handle drainage issues. Fire department had a comment about the new plot plan will have to show how a fire apparatus will be able to reach the site in case of fire. Let's see. Our staff comments were for the architect to provide a rendering of the proposal from the bike path view. They do provide, as I'll get my comments on the screen. So we just need to flip that and see what the project would look like from the bike path side. We had a question in terms of utility locations, construction stabilization, question if there's going to be some bicycle parking and snow removal. And I think the last question was in regards to plot plans, but how the previous proposal for the one project at 120 Tremont Street that was approved by the board. It's supposed to be, it was previously 48 units, how it affects this project that's being proposed. So this question's for the board and the applicant as well.
Yeah, I have some-
Questions to the board, please?
Yes, yeah, I can start with the application. The permit, yeah, special permit application and, anyway, item 4. In zoning board of appeals, it says that he's not required. Has this project been approved by the zoning board of appeals? And the answer is no, no relief is required. And I would ask that more to Jim Soper than anybody. Is that so? I don't know if Mr. Soper is still with us.
Yeah,
Shane,
I'm just saying, in here.
I'll ask you that then, Shane.
Through the chairman, it's Jim Soper, the building commissioner. So the project does not include any increase of FAR, any additions to the structure, so we're not building it out. So there's no need for any special permits on the structure itself. And the applicant is allowed to use that section in parking, which is 17D. Any prior industrial business use that is changed to a use that is allowed by right need not comply with parking. So I see no need for relief from the zoning board of appeals at this point.
Very good. How about the number 6, inclusionary zoning? He's not under that criteria?
So the applicant filed for an A&R with the board just prior to the first advertisement of the public hearing for inclusionary zoning. That was done in order to freeze his rights and to use the zoning that's in place at that time. It freezes it for 2 years.
So what you're saying, Jim, is inclusionary zoning was not in effect at the time when he filed with a definitive subdivision?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Get down to number 7, design standards. Does he come under the, it's amazing what he gets under, but does he come under the Everett design guideline on this project?
Yeah, every applicant that's proposing before the.
Okay, so then in other words, he's required to have 20% brick on the building.
Well, the 20% brick was specific to, based on my information of the design guidelines, it was specific to certain streets.
I understand the streets. I know the streets, but the planning board still has the option of asking the applicant to put 20% of brick on the building. We can ask an applicant to do that, can't we?
Yeah, the board can ask for different, accordance to the design guidelines. The board can provide, suggestions for architectural features for each and every project.
Actually, we can do a little more than ask. We can actually insist.
Yes.
Right?
Being that the design standards are a board guideline, yes.
Right, thank you. 15% landscaping. Does he have 15% landscaping there? Did anybody check on that?
You would need that to be verified.
Okay. The parking, as I'm looking at this building aerial view, on the street side, Tremont Street side, from what I understand, is 15 parking spaces there. He's supposed to have some kind of fencing along there, actual, not fencing, but landscaping to prevent the headlights of those cars from shining across the street into the houses. Follow me, Shane?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I'm posing these more as questions, which will be, unfortunately, it seems like there's a lot of grandfathering going on here, so I'm not quite sure, but I know part of the zoning calls for, city ordinance calls for some kind of deterrent from the headlights shining across the street. So when those cars are parked, they don't shine into the houses across the street. So we need some kind of, we need something along there,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I do myself feel that that front of that building should be all brick, top to bottom, and a little return on the side. It looks nice there, but the rest of the building should be brick. We should see the color of the brick, the materials, as we've been insisting on everything. We want the colors and the materials that are gonna be used, where they're gonna be used. And if it's all hardy board, a sample of the hardy board, sample of the brick also. Building vents, we always talk about. Right now, the building next door looks like has the vents on there. I don't know if the owner's going to choose to paint those to the color of the surrounding area. I hope so. Storage, I don't know if there's any storage in the building for these tenants. Or if that's part of something he doesn't have to worry about.
There's two common areas, but it looks like there's adjacent to the stairs, but I believe that would be an electrical closet next to the stairs.
Yeah, so there's no storage area for someone, like I say, all the time, no storage area.
But there's potential to turn one of the common areas into
Okay, well,
potential storage area.
It'd be great if the applicant would consider that. Page 7 again of the application, starting with D, the narrative, all these empty boxes haven't been checked off, and I would expect that they're required. Would that be correct, Shane?
Yeah, as part of every application, we look to include all the information that's provided on the application.
Okay, so those all have to be checked off and submitted to us yet, correct? And we have no real narrative on the whole project, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good. So as it sits right now, we actually are waiting for a lot of information from different parties. Would that be correct?
Yeah, we would need some additional information based on what we received, but I don't think it's anything too crazy that couldn't be completed at the next meeting.
No, I don't think at all. No, I think as the applicant is obviously aware of how we like to see things here on the planning board, a lot of brick in the front of the building would look nice. Matter of fact, if we have to insist on it, I will. If I have the ability to insist on it, I will. We want to see samples. And other than that, there's not much more we can do. The gentleman has his right to build what he's building. All the department heads seem to agree with that. So with that in mind, I'll just wait till our next meeting.
Sure thing. All right. Does anyone else on the board have any other questions? Or does the applicant have a response to those questions?
I do. If you flip back to the front of the building.
Sure thing. Let me get that. Right here.
Through the chair to Mr. Pisano. So I agree that there should be some landscape in here to block the parking, the lights. So I'll look at the depth of the parking spots and the depth of the drive lane to see. I might be able to throw a wall in, a stone wall, which is a very long wall, but I can look at it with some landscape in the front of it as a buffer so you don't see all wall, but also a nice look. I don't know if I have the room to do that. I built a stone wall on the back of this building, fieldstone. If I can do it here, I'm happy to build a stone wall here to act as a buffer and then landscape in front of it and put some upright trees and some perennials and some uplighting to really soften the whole look of the building. Block the automobile lights. I have no problem doing 20% brick. I'm all for it. I don't think I'm interested in bricking the whole thing, as you suggested.
No, I don't. No, I did not suggest the whole thing. Not at all.
The whole front you had suggested.
The front.
Yeah, I don't think I'm interested in the whole front, but I can look at it and we can have some things drawn. There is 15%. There was actually a lot more than 15% landscaping, but I can verify that. Verify the dimensions and get a view from the bike path.
Cool.
The fire apparatus, there's definitely enough clearance, but I guess I can talk to fire prevention or the fire chief as to what he'd like to see. There's 20 feet plus on this drive lane here. These are all 22s. Sometimes applications come before the board that show 18. These are 22, and I think the zoning calls for 18 in the book or 20, but this is definitely wide enough for a fire truck. Well, Shane, if you could help out, what were some of the other questions or concerns the board may have had that I could address tonight?
Sure, let me see. Stormwater goes through, engineering. Let me just.
We'll work with that, we'll work with engineering to be able to comply with whatever conditions they may have for stormwater to make sure there's proper drainage.
Yeah, and just the questions for, when you did 120, it was a different site layout. We just wanted to make sure that the plan submitted just has information about any changes that would occur from that.
Yeah, I don't think that you have the correct plot plan on file for this actual site.
Sure.
This is the only.
I may have had the incorrect one. But
Yeah, I think I sent it to you. Yeah, I sent it to you earlier today. In the back, of this, if you could go down back to the back of the building on the.
This one. Yeah.
Yeah, this one, but it also shows the dimensions as you noted, and we'll transfer them onto this plot plan.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, and just
Outside,
have and the information about kind of that, to just show that I know they have some information like CAD that shows how a fire apparatus can make that turn, but yeah, just information
You
like
can show a 3-point turn. I know what you're talking about.
Sure. And I would just include, I'm just thinking about it now, looking at the parking, just to include a handicap space as well, for a van space. Someone, just in case if there was a handicap person.
Oh, the other question or suggestion was a bike storage. I'm happy to put a bike storage. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, you have a lot of, common space in there, so you.
Right here, we can put a bike storage here in the front, one of those spots.
Let me just check what the other comments would be. Yeah, just information about construction stabilization and mobilization. Design standards we talked about. Yeah, and just that, that new plot plan with the dimensions and the possibility of, because it says the number of units allowed is 70 per acre, maybe confirm the acreage to see if you would be at that 48, because if it's 47.81, you would only be allowed for 47 acres.
I spoke to Mr. Soper about that. He informed me of that yesterday. I told him no problem.
All right, so just to update, the architecture is showing 47 units and the verification of 15%. So other than that, that was really kind of our comments that came from the department head meeting.
When is the next meeting?
August 24th is our next meeting. So
Okay.
Plenty of time to make some changes or updates.
Sure.
All right, does the board have any other questions?
Where's the trash gonna be located at in the building? It could be outside the building or inside?
I'm sorry, if you could repeat your question.
The trash, where is your trash gonna be located for this in the building, John? Is it gonna be in the back of the building, inside the building? Is it gonna be in dumpsters or
It's gonna be outside the building.
outside in the back or on the side? Do you know where it's gonna be located at?
If you could, Shane.
Yes.
Flip to yeah. It's probably gonna be on the side over here.
Okay. Yeah.
Back, tucked. We can show it.
Yeah, just confirm that in maybe snow storage too. Because I know
Well, typically with snow storage, 6 inches or under, you just plow it, it really melts away. If we get anything, 6 to 12 and it starts mounting and piling up, we'll end up just removing it.
Okay. All right. We'll just add that.
I can include that in the narrative if you'd like.
Yeah, just information about that.
So the trash is gonna be in dumpsters, right? I mean, in a dumpster?
Dumpsters.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll just include that in the updated plans.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? All right. Hearing none, I believe, Mr. Chairman, we should open up to public hearing.
Is there anybody out there that would like to speak first?
All right, let me check YouTube really quick. And I do not see anyone.
Yes, I would.
Oh, sure. We have someone actually in the Zoom meeting. Could you state your name, please?
My name is Ann Moran. I live across the street from the building that Mr. Antonelli is planning on putting on. I understand that Leo said something about putting a wall or something so that when they park their cars, the lights will not shine into my house.
Correct.
And is that been put in writing as I am putting up with that now with his cars and his truck, and especially in the winter time. I'm really not happy seeing that this is going across the street alongside of what he's already put up that I said was fine.
Yes.
I'm the only house on the street that are facing that property.
Mr. Chairman, just to answer that question. There hasn't been a wall put up just yet, but the board did provide the comments that there has to be some sort of screening across the street, and that will be, the applicant will have to provide some information about that at the next meeting.
Okay, I'd
So that will
appreciate that.
So this, yeah, so your comments are read into the record. And if you would like to also attend the next meeting to make sure that happens, be happy to do so.
Okay, I'd like to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moran?
Yes,
Mr. Moran, for the record, would you give your address and your,
it's 115 Tremont Street.
115. Thank you. Thank you,
thank you, Mr. Moran. Now, we're going to continue with the public hearing. I'm going to ask 3 times to all those in favor of this petition, and then all those that may be opposed to this petition. So all those that are in favor of this petition? All those that are in favor of this petition? Third and final time, all those that are in favor of this petition? Hearing none, I declare that that part of the public hearing at this time is closed. All those that may be opposed to this petition?
Myself, Mrs. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Moran.
Thank you.
Second time, anyone opposed to this petition? Third and final time, anyone opposed to this petition? Hearing what we've heard already, this part of the public hearing is closed at this time. Any other questions or comments?
I do not
Will
see any
entertain a motion for continuance.
I make a motion for continuance of site plan review for 110 Tremont Street to August 24th online.
Second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to continue 110 Tremont Street till our next regular order of business date is August 24th, 2020.
Correct.
Roll call vote, please.
Sure. Cheyenne Rangel,
Yes.
George D'Angelo,
Yes.
Michael O'Connor,
Yes.
Leo Pisano,
Yes.
Frederick Cafaso.
Chairman Cafaso says yes.
She does. All right. All right. 5-0. We'll see you at the next meeting, August 24th, Greg.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg.
Thank you.
All right. I don't have the minutes for the last meeting. Jeannie's taking a well-deserved vacation, so I'll harp on her when I get back. But I'll be on vacation next week. So if you have any questions, please get them to me about next week. This week before I'm off next week. Tony will be around. But other than that,
James,
yes.
can you get me a copy of the Everett design guidelines?
Sure can.
That would be great.
I can do that. Oh, do you want?
Matter of fact, Shane, you should get everybody a copy of the design guidelines.
Yeah, that'd be
and
nice.
A
Yes.
copy of the zoning ordinances too, so they're familiar with, such as we talked about tonight with headlight glare.
All right, I'll send over. I'll get those to everyone this week for the guidelines.
Actually, quick question about the design guidelines. Do they live in a space online? Like if I went to like planning department, could I find them online?
Yes, if you go to the city, the homepage of the city, and you go to City Hall, you scroll down to planning boards, that has the design guidelines on it. It also
Okay.
has a online copy of all our planning board plans. But
Very
I can
good.
I can send the link to everyone as well. So I'll ask who wants a physical copy and who wants digital copies.
I would prefer a physical copy.
All right, physical, perfect.
Physical is good.
Yeah.
Physical's good.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll see you August 24th.
You then take
Bye
care.
all.